Bang! Neeves Knives, I'm Jared, and today we're going to talk about one of my most used sharpening systems today, at least as of lately, which is made in Ukraine. This is the UKSG, so it's in my European sharpening affiliate link. Now, you can still buy these in the US, but obviously people in Europe are going to really like this site. Now, they have sharpening stones. This is the same company where I do get my sharpening stones from, which we're going to talk about here in a little bit. But what I want to talk about today is their sharpening system. So we're going to talk all about the sharpening system, some sharpening stones, and little things that you can get for this sharpening system, or any sharpening system for that matter. Let's go. So one thing I'm going to recommend right away if you do get this sharpening system is to get this clamp. Now, I have the single clamps, but like a lot of the sharpening systems that are similar to this, you can't put them together because they get stopped by this centerpiece. So if you want to do smaller knives, 3 inches or smaller, or narrow knives that are a little bit slimmer, you're gonna want this clamp. Now, this is an awesome clamp, and I'll be honest, this is what I use 90% of the time. So I would say if you don't have this clamp, it's probably not gonna work out the best for you. So when you buy the system, get the clamp. I'd say that it's mandatory. Now, another thing is that really quick, how does it work? Just really quick. So one thing, you obviously have to assemble it. This little hook is really cool because it helps you get the rod out of the way. So in between sharpening, when you're gonna switch stones, you can hook it, push it away, get your stone out, and makes it really easy. The clamp is right here. This is a stone clamp. And this little part right here is really cool because it protects you. Like if I take a stone right now and just show you this, you can easily hook it. See how I just hook it in that slot, pull this back because this is on spring tension, pull it back and it's hooked. Now this little slot protects my fingers from the edge because it's not gonna hit my fingers because it'll hit this. So I do like that. And then on the way down, it has a little stopper right here. This stopper makes it where now I don't have to worry about the back of the stone sliding down the grind of my knife. So that's really cool. And then obviously you can go up and down from here. You have a stone compensator here. So say if I want to switch from a thicker or a thinner stone, I just measure it right there. So that's the measurement. So now if I go to a thicker stone, I just got to lift it up and measure the thickness. If it goes to thinner, lower it. So you can literally switch stones or to strops or whatever that are thinner or thicker, and you don't have to worry about checking your angle again. However, I still recommend and always recommend getting a digital angle finder. I will link all this stuff down in the description. Digital angle finders, I recommend just getting them from Amazon. They're really cheap. Typically, if you get them from a company that's selling you a system, they're gonna overcharge. So you can get these, 10 bucks, 15 bucks, sometimes less, but just get a decent one with magnets. I recommend getting magnets. Now, not all these systems, like this one's all aluminum. So the only thing that's magnetic is down here, and the rod. You can use it on the rod. So that's cool. This one right here specifically is that. So if you want to get this exact one, I love this one. I love that it's magnetic all the way around, so I can hang it at an angle or whatever if I'm going to do it for other things. Now, again, you can raise and lower your angle here. And then when you have your knife clamped, which today we are going to be quickly doing the Kershaw New Bel Air. This is the XL, the large version. Highly recommend this knife. Made in the USA, magnet cut steel, but it's affordable, G10, great crossbar lock. Now, this system comes with this little tool, and you have a spot to put the bit right here or right here. Now, what's cool about this one is you can put it in a little bit right there, or all the way in like that, so you can get the most amount of leverage. And this works for most of the stuff on here. Not everything, but most. And because you can extend it, if you do have some screws that are maybe in the way of things, you can kind of get past them. But right here, this is how you loosen up the jaws. Another thing I'm going to recommend to everybody to get is this KAPTON tape, K-A-P-T-O-N. I will link it down in the description. KAPTON tape is really cool because a lot of these jaws don't have rubber guards. So when they squeeze your knife, they can potentially scratch it. So what I do is I will take this little piece of tape and I will cut little strips. This isn't the one we want. I will cut just little tiny strips like right there. I'll cut about 2 to 3 of them. Right now we're gonna do 2, and I just fold that over like that. So now I can take this and then go right over the spine. Now, one thing about this Kershaw that's also really cool is it has removable thumb studs. So if they get in my way, I can take them off, which we're just gonna do that right now. I've removed the thumb studs really quick. I just used a T6 torque driver, bang. So now that's protected, and this is abrasive resistant, heat resistant, but it's very easy to get off and also very easy to cut. So now I have a place to clamp. So I'm going to clamp one side and then the other, and I'm not going to tighten them all the way down. I'm going to go back and forth so that it evenly clamps. And then once I get it down to a certain point, I'm going to check it. And if I feel a little movement, I'm going to crank it down even tighter. And then keep going until you feel no movement at all. Right there should be good. There we go. So now I'm ready to sharpen. I just got to check my angle, and we're going to do that in a second. But first, let's talk about this arm. So this is how you flip the knife. So I want to go to one side to the other. Now, if the tension is weak, like where, like if I'm sharpening the tip, it'll pop out, you can tighten it right over here. So you can basically, I think it was you loosen this guy right here, and I think you could still use this guy. Yeah, you loosen this guy, and then you can rotate this to pressure, to build pressure on the spring, or to pull it and make it lighter or stronger. And then you can, lock it down for the type of pressure you want this thing to have. And basically it's just, the amount of tension it takes to disengage it or whatever. Now, in order to find my angle, what I'm going to do is I am going to first put the stone in. Now, this is the stones we want. Okay, so this is my mixed bag of stones. I sell them with this kit. The new ones are all going to have our new logo, which is a fingerprint for Neeves Knife Co. Kind of like, how they take fingerprints on a crime scene. Same concept, fingerprint, right? So the new stones will all have fingerprints on them. We will have them very soon. So if you want these stones, you can go to Neeves Knife Co. and pre-order them right now. They're literally in the mail, about to be there, however long they take to get there, but they are in shipping. So you can pre-order them right now, and hopefully you'll be able to get them in this batch, but we're going to instantly try to refill them every time. Now, we have two sets of stones we're going to have. We're going to have the mixed batch, which is the most expensive one, which has a silver 160, then a 285 vitrified, a 550 vitrified, then an 1100 hybrid, 3000 grit hybrid, and then a 5000 grit hybrid. Now we're also going to sell separately an 80 grit. So that's up to you if you want to buy that. That's just going to be more aggressive, so you spend less time with your first stone. Then this holds 7 stones, this little stone holder. So if you get this stone holder, you'll be able to add an extra strap, or you can add your extra 80 grit stone. Now we're also going to have full sets of hybrids as well, which will save you quite a bit of money. So I recommend getting the full set of hybrids if you're, kind of a little bit more tighter on money. This is very expensive regardless, but if you want to go all out, you can get the most premium set. I do have a full video talking about, some of the differences. Most people are not going to really care about the differences as much. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my first stone, and I am going to unhook my rod. I'm going to lock this in really quick, and now I'm going to check my angle. So just like I showed you before, you want to get a digital angle finder. So you use the base to zero it out. So turn it on, put it on the base, and then tar it off. Once it hits 0, now I can pick it up and I can set it right here. We're at 16.8. That looks pretty good to me. I'm going to just take it right down to 16. Close enough, right there, bam. That's what we're gonna do it at. So now I'm gonna lock this in so it don't change. My stones really won't change, but just in case, I like to make sure it's still set. And that's about right. And now that I have my angle and everything, now I am ready to set this to a little bit farther, right there. So make sure this edge of the stone does not come off of the edge of your knife, because if it does, what can happen is then it'll fall off like that. And then same thing goes for this way, but this one does not have a stopper in that direction. That's one thing I think that they should have done, is put a stopper here. So when I go this way, I'm not going to go on top of the knife. However, they do have this little stopper, so I will give them credit. They at least gave you something. Okay, so right there, we're locked in. And now we're ready to start sharpening, which this is A very easy blade shape to sharpen. You don't have to really worry about, you know, any big bellies or anything like that. However, you always want to make sure you stop the stone at the tip. I say do not let the stone go halfway past the tip. So like the center of the stone, don't let the tip pass the center point of the stone, like right there. Now, what I like to do is just stop as soon as it hits, because when you're going a little bit faster, you tend to allow it to go a little bit farther than you should. And if you're trying to stop it in the center, it's going to roll over. And once it rolls over once, it rounds your tip and it's very difficult to get out. If you do it twice, you're probably not going to be able to get it out the first sharpening. So don't let it go past. If you work on any one area like this, don't do much and then blend it in. Make sure you do twice as much passes to blend it in than you did in that one area. Otherwise you will see that. Blend it in. I can work on one area, but I need to blend it in. We're trying to make sure our scratch pattern is all running at an angle, just like a serrated blade or a saw blade. Now, one other little trick really quick. If you get a multi-pack of rubber gaskets or rubber rings like this, you can take one of these, stretch it over the knife right here, and then set it right there, which what that will do is, and I can put 2 of them if I need to, we're gonna see, but what that'll do is that will stop me from hitting the edge of my handle and possibly hitting the back of my plunge grind. See, right now I do think I need 2. So I'm going to put 1 more of the same size right there. So I put 2 rubber rings on there. Now watch, see how it'll bounce off now? So now I don't really have to worry about hitting the back of my plunge or hitting the handle of my knife. You can also use little zip ties for this as well, which does work just as easy or just as well. They're really cheap, they're really affordable. You can technically reuse them if you want, but not the zip ties. Unless if you do take the zip ties off rather than cut them, most people wind up clipping them. Now, when you get a little spot like this where the heel is not wanting to get gotten, you just take your edge of your stone and barely tilt it like that, okay? And I mean ever so slightly. You're not gonna go like this. You're just gonna barely put a little bit more pressure on this side on that edge, but not very long. You do not want to do it completely. Don't try to finish this. Just do it a little bit, then blend it in. Do a little bit, blend it in. Do a little bit, blend it in. That will make sure you're not messing your angle up to where this is abnormal looking compared to the rest of the edge. And then you just complete this until the scratch pattern reaches the apex. Now, you don't have to finish this side until it reaches the apex. You could flip it over and then do some of this side. So do the same thing on this side, and we're not gonna finish this side either. We're just gonna do about halfway to 3/4. And then once we got it about halfway or 3/4, we're gonna flip it back over and then finish the side we started on until we reach the apex. In 1 second, I'm gonna talk about the burr development. Now, one thing I do wanna say is that you wanna make sure that both sides, your scratch pattern is going from the top of the bevel to the apex, from the heel of the blade into the tip, and getting a burr. Okay, once you've acquired a burr from both sides, so meaning there's only going to be a burr on one side, but you want to make sure you've developed them on both sides. So sharpen this side until you get a burr on the opposite side, and do the other side until you get a burr on the opposite of that side, which would be this side. So right now our burr is on this side. So now I want to switch my stones. Now you're going to repeat the exact same thing all the way until your finishing stone. Now, if you want a video to know what grit is the best for what steel, I do have a full video talking about like 95% of the steels we use on knives, and I tell you where you should stop your grit or what grit you should sharpen it at. Edge angle does have a lot to do with it. Now, one little trick I like to do for sharpening is once I have my burr, so right now my burr is on this side, and the burr is a metal wire that's folded over. I talk about it in a lot of videos, so I'm not going to really explain it in this, but you know, when you remove material from the edge, a wire develops, and now it's on this side. So what I'm gonna do is, instead of just going into sharpening, I'm gonna start at the tip and I'm just gonna do one little stropping pass basically. So I start at the tip and I basically do a reverse pass. And what that's doing is it's just flipping the burr over to the other side, to this side, without tearing it off. And now I'm gonna work on this side. And now the first stone should be the stone that takes the longest. All the other stones should go pretty quick if you got all your sharpening done, all your steel removal done with your first stone. So you remove all the steel you need to with the first stone, and you use the rest of the stones basically to make the finish. Now, one thing you're gonna notice, a lot of knives, first edge, the tip of the knife might not be perfect. You might have a little spot that is not getting hit and you're like, man, why will that one spot not come out? So do not stress about that. Get as much as you can, but don't worry about finishing it. You can do it on the next sharpening. There's a reason why it's kind of like a pothole. Like, in order to get a pothole out of the road by grinding down the road, you'd have to grind down all of the road until the pothole's gone, right? In order to get it out that way. Of course, you can fill it, but with this, you can't. So in order to get the pothole out, you got to grind down everything. Same thing with this. So we don't want to remove years of steel to get out that tiny little thing that's not going to affect anything. On the next sharpening, on the second sharpening, that's when you can get that out. So get it as good as you can, but if you do see any spots that are just little areas that are just not coming out for the life of you, don't stress about it. It is irresponsible of a good sharpener to sharpen those out in one sharpening, because you're removing years and years of steel for one little spot that doesn't matter. So we're gonna finish up with this side and then we're ready to switch to our next stone. So technically, with the rest of the stones besides the first one, you are supposed to use soapy water. I did not use soapy water on the second one because the vitrifieds, while they do require soapy water, they don't bitch about it. So I just didn't do it on that one. So now I am gonna use it from here out because the stones do require it. Silvers, my first stone, the silver, doesn't really require it. You can use it and maybe it helps a little bit, but you know, if I don't have to use lubrication, it's nice not to. Okay, so I am to my last stone now. And now I want to explain why I did what I said with my burr by doing reverse or stropping passes, you know, in between once I start each stone. Now the reason why is because I don't want to tear it off. I don't mind leaving my burr on there until the end. Now, us going up to 5,000 grit, we might not even have a burr at this level. But let's say I stopped at 600 grit or 1,000 grit and I did have a burr. I want the burr to naturally pop off. I don't want it to just be ripped off. So if I have flipped it 2 or 3 times by the time I get to my finishing stone, it's much more fatigued at the point of the apex, which is the part we want to reveal when we do our burr removal. So right now we're finishing this side and then we're gonna do a burr removal, even though we don't really have a burr because it's 5,000 grit, but sometimes you do at 5,000 grit. So now I flip over to this side. This is where the burr would be. So I'm gonna do a pass that way, a pass this way. And I'm basically just making sure I'm fatiguing the burr back and forth, just like if I took a paper clip and I bent it back and forth, eventually it's gonna snap. Well, we want the same thing to happen here. So now I'm gonna do some forward passes. We want the same thing to happen here, but we want it to be very natural. We want it to either 1, pop off naturally, or 2, slowly diminish, which is usually what happens when you go all the way up to 5,000 grit anyways. And now we know we have a nice clean apex with really nice microscopic serrations that we did not mess up when we removed our burr. If we would just tore it off, some of our little microscopic teeth would have ripped off with our burr. We want our apex to be perfect. We want to reveal a perfect apex. And then from here, we will strop. Go ahead.
If you were to do that stropping motion earlier in the process and have knocked it off, you know, just, you know, when you were done with maybe some of your earlier stones, would you have likely not want to do that because you'd like develop another burr, or is it also because of the micro teeth you were just talking about?
It would have developed. No matter what, if it falls off, that's okay. If it just accidentally pops off with your sharpener, that's actually a good thing. That means your steel is very hard, so that's a good sign, but it's just gonna redevelop again. So that's fine if it falls off, you know, at some point, but just, you know, it'll just wind up redeveloping. The fact that you've hit the apex on both sides by making sure you have a burr on both sides and making sure your scratch pattern is consistent means you've already hit the apex. So at that point, you've already established the point what you want. With each stone, all you're trying to do is make the teeth that are at the apex smaller and smaller and smaller until you're to your desired finish. A super toothy edge is like this, the really big jagged teeth, right? A medium grit edge is like this, a fine edge is like this. So that's basically what you're trying to do with each stone after the first stone. The first stone creates the bevel. All the other stones create your sawtooth pattern or your microscopic serrations. And now we're going to use the strop to clean in between each micro serration. Okay, so here's a great way for me to explain a burr. So this would be your dull edge. It has a bunch of chips in it. Now, as you sharpen your edge, a burr is going to develop, which is basically going to be the chips that are on top, because in order to get these chips out, you have to sharpen all the way down to the lowest point, all the way across. So the biggest chip, whatever that is, or the biggest part of the wear. And also just reach the apex, right? So the stone, once it reaches the apex from heel to tip of the bevel, you're going to start developing the steel. And then you're going to develop the metal wire going across. And then when you go to this other side, you can flip it over to this side. So we sharpen this side and it was like this. Now we want to flip it over to the opposite side with each stone. So then we'll go to the next stone, you flip it over the other way. And you go to the next stone, flip it over the other way. And you just keep repeating that until it starts popping off. Now this might happen throughout the sharpening, but it also might not. It might stay on like this until your last stone, whatever stone you want to finish at. So then you go back and forth, just like we showed with your process of sharpening. You know, every time you go to a new stone, flip it over with doing a reverse pass. But now, because the burr, let's say the burr is still there after all your stones and you're going to finish on whatever stone, you can do passes from each side to the other until the burr starts to pop off. As it pops off, it's going to slowly pop off. Particles are going to slowly pop off until there's very, very little left. And then eventually you will have a clean apex. Now, if we zoomed into this, it would be a micro serrated blade. You'd have little teeth, right? So there's in between each teeth. That's what you're going to strop. So when you strop, you're stropping and it's cleaning in between each serration and sharpening the little peaks of those serrations so you can have a nice sharp knife. And it will help remove any remaining burr that's trying to hang on. But remember, we've already fatigued it. So this will easily remove it because we didn't just tear it off, right? We fatigued it first. So now we can make sure that in between each microscopic serration that's on our edge has a nice clean, it's clean in between each serration, and each serration is nice and sharp. And then now we are ready to take it off.
Fatigued is what you're labeling the process of tiring out the burr. Back and forth, back and forth.
Yes. I will put Loctite on these later. Now, if you look at this tip, you'll notice, see how I didn't get it perfectly? That's what I mean. So that isn't going to affect my cutting whatsoever. That little tiny bit right at the apex, I will get that on the next sharpening because I did not want to remove 2 edges worth of steel in order just to get that one little speck that is not going to affect my utility cuts at all. Wow. Whew, that's so sharp. Nice slow one. That is sharp. Okay, now for the ultimate sharpness test, the paper towel test. Ooh, that is so sharp. Look at that S cut all the way down. Holy cow. Watch this. Let's rip that off. That is so sharp. Couple negatives about the system. One, I wish it came with the single clamp instead of you having to buy it separate. That's one negative for me. However, I at least like that you can get it. I don't like that the 2 clamps can't close together because of the center piece, but that's just something that happens. I feel like there's a way they could machine a half a circle just to get around this or something. I don't know. They did it with this, so that's fine. The next thing is not having a stopper going this way, that I can stop it early before it gets to this so that I don't have to worry about, you know, my stone riding up the side of my blade. Now, other than that, I mean, there's so much good here. I highly recommend this system. I love this system. The nitpicks and negatives are very, very minor. One thing I will say is it would be cool if, specifically for the clamps, if they sent extra screws. Eventually, these are going to strip out. When you use them over and over and over, tightening as hard as you can, loosening and tightening as hard as you can, of course, they're gonna last a long time because they're large, but eventually they're gonna wear out. So it'd be cool if they just sent an extra set, which will last you years and years to come. And one thing I really like about this system is, well, a few things. One, it has a little dimple underneath this, so this can't spin and rotate. So once you tighten this on, that little detent that's underneath there stops it from moving. And it's a good spot to pick it up from because this is a heavy piece because it has a very heavy base. The clamp movement, I like that you can strengthen it or weaken it, which is really cool. I love this hook. It's very, very convenient to move and, you know, to get out of the way. The angle system is very easy to change. So all in all, this is one of the better sharpening systems you can buy on the market. Now, is it the best? I don't know. We'll have to find out because I got a top 10 coming up. Work hard, stay tough. Till next time, peace.